Well, we had a Beetle when I was real little. You know, I was so young, I can't even remember what color it was. The funny thing was, my dad ended up taking it to a shop and making it into a dune buggy, which didn't make my mom too happy when he came home with it. We also had a bus. We would camp in it and come up here for vacation because we were living in Illinois. And the Silver Lake area was pretty rich with Volkswagens. But once we moved here, basically just wanted to have them for myself also. My name's Burgess. This is my 74 Beetle and my 73 bus. The story with the Beetle is I was 16 years old and I saw it parked on the side of the road for sale. It was something that I had always wanted since I was a kid. And I went home to my mom and I told her about it, and they ended up buying it for me. It was a little old lady that originally owned it with a bun in her hair, so we bought it, and I drove it in high school. First winter was pretty rough with no heat. It needed some work. I had a friend put her foot through the back floor. It needed floor pans. It ended up with a whole paint job by the end of the project. It wasn't a continuous project. When I was fixing it up, it took a long time, and I was just out of high school, so I didn't have a lot of money to put into it all the time, so it sat in a storage unit for a while. There was a period where it wasn't drivable, when the floor pans were out of it, in different stages of that project, the doors were off, all the glass was out of it, so there was probably a year or two period of time where it was in a storage unit, close to the body shop I work at, so I could wheel it over, work on it when I had the time or the money. After hours, the boss said that would be okay. I'd work on it after hours, and maybe he didn't know I'd go so far with it, with an entire new paint job, but you start a project and you just keep going and keep going. And it's funny because at one point we had a fire in the shop. It wasn't a roaring fire, but it was enough. With all the customers' vehicles in there, everybody jumped in a vehicle and got it outside. And there's my car sitting on jack stands, and we can't get it. We could each grab a corner and probably carry it out, but it sat there. But no damage. The fire department got there fast and took care of the situation, but I was stressed out. It was a good feeling driving it out of the garage for the first time because it had been so long, and to have it spick and span, it was a good feeling. I never thought I would have it this long. Of course, I can't get rid of it. Grows on you. I've even got the same music in there that I did when I was in high school. I believe the bus came around in 2010. Erica and I had been going down south, southern Illinois, to some car shows, the big Bug Fest, and there's a lot of them there. And we were eyeballing them, thinking, well, it would be really cool to have one of those someday. Kept an eye out for them, and it was my sister that called me, and she found this one sitting on the edge of a field, way back off the road. There must have been a sunbeam hitting it or something that caught her eye. And she said, hey, I saw a bus back in a field, and it was even orange. I had to go investigate. I brought a friend with me, and we knocked on the guy's door. Said, hey, was that your bus back there? And he says, yeah. And we asked him if he'd be interested in selling it. And surprisingly, he said, yeah, that's how I got it. There was some pretty major things wrong with it. It was pretty sunken into the ground. All the tires were flat. The engine was in rough shape. The valve covers were off of it. Their spark plugs were missing, but it didn't scare me away. The thing that was useful for me was my imagination. If Erica would have seen it in the shape that it was sitting in that field, she might have said, no, you gotta be crazy. But with my imagination, imagining what I can do, getting it out of that environment was a big step. Getting it on flat ground, all air in the tires, it looked a lot better just doing that. It took me a year to get this on the road after dragging it out of the woods. I had bought another one for parts. It was another van, but it had a running engine in it. That was a big step. I put that engine in here, did brakes, made it mechanically sound, and then it was on the road. It was on Father's Day when I picked it up, and it was the following Father's Day I went back. I drove it to the guy's house and knocked on his door and showed it to him. And I think at that point he was a little bit of regret. One good thing about this one is it is rough around the edges, and we're not afraid to use it. With the Beetle, I'm afraid to scratch it. It doesn't get used like the bus would. And we take the bus camping. I wanted to let it stay the way it is so I can drive it through the woods, and if branches are scratching it, it's not doing any harm. So we would take it camping while we still all fit in it as a family, and we grew. These days we load it up with beach toys. We'll take it to the beach or just take it for a ride, go yard sailing. That's how it gets its use these days. When the kids get old enough to drive them, they've already got it figured out who's driving what, who's getting what. I didn't have a say in it. Simon didn't have a say in it because he's too young, but the girls divvied him up. Maybe they can take him, but not a daily driver to high school. And this is definitely not going to prom, I can tell you that. With the Beetle, when I was fixing it up, I didn't necessarily fix it for car shows. I just wanted to have it roadworthy again and be able to use it. I saw things that I liked and chose those. The bumpers on there aren't stock. Those are called T-handles. You take the bumpers off, that's something to replace the bulky bumpers. I just like the look better. One of them fell off. They're bolted on, but one of the kids said, hey, this is loose, and she pulled it right out. So it's on my list of things to get to. The wheels were, there was a friend in town, he had a Beetle, and he had a souped up engine in it. And I think it got away from him and he hit a guardrail, damaged the car, and the car had been sitting for a while. And he was willing to let the wheels go. I like the look of them on his car, put them on my car, and that's where they've been. Stock motor in the Beetle. I've never done anything to it except a tune-up. It's a 1600cc Volkswagen, air-cooled. It feels racy sometimes, especially after driving the bus. It's definitely not fast. With the exhaust system that's on there now, it's kind of loud. But with the engine so far behind you, you don't really hear it. But everyone around you does. Maybe I should get some quieter exhaust, but nobody's complained. With the car shows, we would go to a big one every year in Southern Illinois called Bugfest. We started going to that in 1999. So we would go to the car show. I could pick up a fender while I'm down there. So we would go down to that, and I would see all the other cars, and I could pick what I like out of them and help me make a decision on which direction I wanted to go with this one. I did enjoy those car shows when we were going, but I would much rather have them in use. I don't want to sit next to it. I want to take the family on a ride. Just as many people look at them. Well, my number one favorite experience when driving the Beetle is the reaction that you get from people on the sidewalks, walking down the street. You see people getting slug bugged. You see people pointing, smiling, giving peace signs. Driving the bus is a lot the same as driving the Beetle. People love it, they like to see it. People have memories of their childhood riding in it, or one like it. it makes everybody happy. That's my favorite part about it.
Put it in sport mode!